Okay, let's unpack this. We all have this image in our heads of what concentrated power looks like, right?
Hmm.
The robber baron, the media mogul. Their name is just emblazoned on everything they touch. It's a kind of power you can literally see.
It's power that's proclaimed, absolutely.
What if that whole model is, well, not just dated, but completely obsolete? The sources we're looking at today argue that modern oligarchy has gone through this quiet, almost seismic cultural shift.
Right.
It's a move away from those visible thrones, that kind of public dominance, and towards something much more complex, much more discrete, something rooted entirely in connection and discretion.
Which is a huge change.
A huge change. And so today we are diving deep into this concept the sources call networked identity. Our mission is to really get our heads around this fundamental transformation, focusing on why being a quiet node in a system is now, strategically more valuable than being the visible owner of some massive asset.
And to really grasp the genius of this modern invisibility, we have to start with the historical baseline. The term itself, oligarchia, it's Greek for rule by the few. And while those few have always been adaptive, historically, their power was always, and I mean always, tied to visibility, to the physical proclamation of control.
So what does that look like, say, in ancient Athens?
Well, in Athens, the ruling class held power through very direct, observable means. Owning vast amounts of land, for one,
Sure.
controlling military strength, and then using that very visible wealth to compete openly with, these new democratic movements. Their authority was based on their sheer tangible presence.
You could point to it.
You could point right to it.
And that pattern of visible ownership, that just continues, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, like, the powerful merchant families in medieval Venice.
Exactly. Their oligarchy wasn't just about money. It was about this elaborate, very physical control over maritime trade routes.
So it's geographically specific.
It is. Their family ties, their monopolies, they were publicly known. It was crucial to their legitimacy. Even if they were making deals behind closed doors, you still knew who controlled the port.
Which then brings us to the Gilded Age in America. I mean, that feels like the peak of visibility.
Oh, the ultimate age of visibility. The Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Morgans, they didn't just accumulate wealth. They aggressively turned it into cultural statements, architectural statements.
Their names were plastered on everything.
On universities, foundations, massive buildings. The power was completely synonymous with the person.
Right.
So the pattern throughout history is this. For power to be recognized, it had to be legible. You had to master the dominant system, land, trade, industry, and then you cemented your authority with monuments.
But that visibility in the modern world, it creates risk.
A massive risk.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This is where the silent revolution begins. The cost of being that visible today is just too high.
It is. You have regulatory oversight. You have instant public scrutiny.
And those legacy assets, they're slow. They're hard to move. And the sources draw this really sharp contrast between that old Gilded Age model like Carnegie's library, a very visible asset tied to one accountable owner, and the landscape today.
Yeah, it's a strategic choice. This shift is driven by cold calculation, not out of any necessity. It's a pivot towards systems that are designed from the ground up to make ownership untraceable.
So we're moving from the Carnegie Library to, what, the anonymous beneficial owner?
Exactly, to the anonymous owner buried deep inside layers of shell companies, offshore entities, and these incredibly complex trusts.
So the core strategic move is just complexity itself.
That's it. Power isn't anchored to a factory anymore. It's anchored to legal and financial structures that, frankly, demand a specialist just to even begin to untangle the threads.
So influence is exercised through subtle calculation, not some grand public declaration.
Precisely. You're moving resources through digital networks instead of, building a new steel mill. And this obscurity, it functions as armor. If you can't be easily seen or taxed, can't be effectively targeted.
Which leads us directly to this core idea of a networked identity.
Yes.
So if they're abandoning physical territory and visible assets, what is the new foundation? What does networked identity actually mean in practice?
It means that influence no longer comes from controlling a plot of land or a company. It comes from occupying strategic, high-leverage positions inside global connections.
Connections that transcend borders.
Transcend everything. Continents, industries, digital platforms, all at the same time. Think of it less as a kingdom and more like a constantly evolving neural network. Relationships, the ability to move money, data, policy ideas across these different nodes, that has become the real currency of power.
But doesn't that make the whole system incredibly fragile? I mean, if your power is just relationships, what happens when people fall out or when trust breaks down? Kingdoms fell all the time because alliances crumbled.
And that is the genius of the modern model. Solitary power is fragile,
Right.
which is why resilience is built into the structure through redundancy. The system thrives because power is intentionally distributed. It's not concentrated in one CEO or one company.
So how does that play out? What are the specific manifestations?
You see it in things like holding non-executive board positions across maybe 6 completely unrelated sectors.
Like tech, energy, finance.
Tech, energy, finance, healthcare data, you name it. And using investment partnerships that create these deep mutual interdependencies. So if one company fails, the network just, it reroutes around it.
The survival of the whole network becomes the main goal.
It's the paramount shared interest.
So the goal is to be essential, but...
And never indispensable.
Right, never indispensable in any single domain. That's a crucial distinction. And this whole emphasis on connectivity, it's really a product of our move into a post-industrial world.
Entirely.
The old power structures, the factories, the mines, they're slow, they're immobile, they're incredibly expensive.
They're heavy.
They are heavy. And in a post-industrial economy, those physical assets have been replaced by the ability to just connect and synthesize information across these vast networks.
It's exactly right. Physical assets are heavy. Data, finance, IP, that's all light. It's highly portable. So modern power brokers, they position themselves at the intersection of multiple critical value chains.
They aren't just participating in these sectors, they're orchestrating the flow between them.
That's the perfect word, orchestrating.
Yeah.
The sources give a great example. A modern influential figure doesn't just own a bank.
Okay.
They own a big stake in a fintech platform. They anonymously fund a global policy group on data privacy. And they sit on the board of 2 major cloud computing providers.
So they don't control the river, they control the policy, the dam, and the purification plant all at once.
All at once and across different jurisdictions. It's a much more subtle and much more powerful form of influence.
And this seems to create a very specific kind of adaptive culture within these networks. It demands cooperation, which feels totally counterintuitive to old school capitalism. Why share when you can conquer?
Because that zero-sum conquer-it-all competition is inefficient. And more importantly, it draws a lot of unwanted attention. The successful modern network cultivates cooperation for mutual advancement. This means information flows freely between trusted nodes. Strategic partnerships actually replace hostile takeovers.
And resources are pooled.
Resources are pooled, not just money, but human capital, political influence, all for the network's collective resilience. It's a fundamental cultural shift. They see the system as a shared engine that has to be maintained, not a pie to be eaten by one person.
I get the advantage of pooling resources, but let's talk about the new battleground, digital ecosystems. If they aren't trying to dominate, how does that cooperation translate into actual power?
Well, the sources suggest the goal is to become an essential connector, not the dominator. We see this in things like consortium approaches to blockchain governance or shared AI research initiatives. They're funded by multiple, sometimes competing firms.
So they're not trying to monopolize the tech?
No, not at all. They're facilitating the framework for the tech. That way, their central position in the flow of data and decisions is secure and really irreplaceable. They get to dictate the rules of the game for everyone else.
And this brings us to the cultural significance of this push toward discretion and invisibility.
It's profound. The identity of the modern power broker is deliberately woven into the fabric of these collaborative systems. They prioritize sustained, hidden access over any kind of momentary public recognition.
So how do they actually achieve that invisibility? What are the mechanics?
It's all done through sophisticated legal maneuvers. We're talking about distributed ownership structures that fragment control across dozens of entities.
Okay.
Proxy relationships that legally distance the decision-maker from the public action, and strategic anonymity in philanthropy, what's often called dark money.
So they moved from funding the library with their name on it
To funding the policy center that writes the curriculum the library will end up using.
That's a critical distinction. It's not about hiding money, it's about hiding influence. But how do these flexible networks handle the sheer speed of technological disruption? AI, quantum computing. These forces could shatter a static structure overnight.
And that's where this adaptive culture really proves its worth. They don't fight the disruption, they embed flexibility into their structure.
So they prioritize cultural resilience.
Yes, by favoring decentralized, rapid decision-making. They see a huge technological change, the rise of AI, a shift in cloud tech, not as a threat, but as an opportunity to reallocate their human capital toward higher value work.
Like what?
Strategic synthesis and relationship building. A static company waits for the disruption to hit them. A networked identity has members already embedded in the labs and the regulatory bodies that are shaping that disruption.
So they can anticipate and integrate the change before it even happens.
Exactly.
So instead of trying to build the single biggest AI model, they participate in these cooperative networks to shape the underlying standards, the ethical frameworks, the laws around AI governance.
Right. The power is in establishing the boundaries and the rules of the game for everybody else using the technology, no matter who owns the actual servers.
Which leads to this idea the sources call shared stewardship. It sounds almost benevolent.
It does on the surface.
They're protecting the system because their survival depends on it. The old model of just exploiting resources is obsolete because if you destroy the ecosystem, your network has nothing left to sustain it.
It's enlightened self-interest. It's channeling self-preservation toward what looks like collective systemic health. The modern network gets that its influence depends on the health of the whole system, financial, environmental, technological. So this quiet revolution aligns their own survival with what appears to be sustainability and ethical oversight. The networked future is built on maintaining the system, not plundering it.
So what does this all mean for us? The sources paint this picture of a really quiet transformation. The traditional visible throne is gone.
It's been traded for the subtle, resilient network made.
And influence flows through cooperation and strategic subtlety, not visible command and control.
And this transformation is so vital for you, the listener, to recognize because it redefines the very nature of power in our world. These networked futures governance models, where platforms are steered by distributed stakeholders, AI frameworks shaped by collaborative input. This isn't theory.
It's being built right now.
It's being constructed daily, often completely outside of public view.
The sources reveal that this idea of strategic connectedness is the foundation of the contemporary world, and not just for the powerful few, but really for every sector, for every person seeking to be relevant.
Which leaves us with a really important question for you. Now that you can recognize that concentrated influence is built on strategic connections and shared frameworks, not just old-fashioned control. If the world's most powerful figures are succeeding by building networks of shared adaptive culture, how will you participate in shaping the cooperative frameworks that define tomorrow's ecosystems to ensure that visibility and accountability remain part of that equation?